we got to get better and smarter at truly collaborating with the other cities, north and south, I think, as well as the the smaller communities.
Welcome to Smart in the City, the Babel podcast. I am your host, Tamlin Shimizu, and really at Babel, we aim to connect the players in the smart city industry with high quality information and ideas through our platform and services. This podcast is really an extension of this goal and mission to drive the change for a better urban life. Before we get started, I wanted to inform all you lovely listeners about a great opportunity. Babel has extended the deadline for the Innovation Market Watch for 2023. So top smart city companies are invited to apply before the 30th of September, and it's completely free. So just follow the link in the show notes. So today we are kicking off a very special series, and a series that I'm personally quite excited for. And it is a series in collaboration with Smart Dublin, featuring and digging into some of the most unique aspects of the Dublin ecosystem and what makes Smart Dublin really a strong example at the forefront of smart cities in Europe and beyond. So with me today, I have an extra special guest, Alan Murphy, who is the Smart Dublin Regional Manager. Welcome, Alan.
Hey, good morning. Hi, Tamlin.
Hi, nice to have you here. It's really a pleasure to do this collaboration with you, and I'm excited to dig in a bit deeper into what makes Smart Dublin click. So I'll start us off with just a little teaser to get us warmed up and then we'll dig in a bit deeper. And the teaser is, if Dublin were an animal, what would it be?
Oh gosh. If Dublin was an animal, what would it be? Well, it can't be a tiger, because once upon a time we had the Celtic tiger in Ireland, and it. I don't know if it went. I don't know if it went too good. Gosh, I'm going to go with a dog, because the dog's got personality. So, let's say Dublin would be a nice, cuddly dog that would be loyal and great to hang around with. Yeah, let's go with that.
That's nice. As a personal dog owner and dog lover myself, I like that answer. So, thanks for appeasing our little teasers, and now we will really dig in a bit deeper. So to give also our listeners a bit more context about what Smart Dublin is, some information, and then I'll ask you a bit more to tell us from your words. So Smart Dublin was founded in 2016 as an initiative of the 4 Dublin local authorities that bring together industry, academia, and citizens to transform public services and enhance the quality of life for citizens. Their goal is to help future-proof the Dublin region by trialing and scaling innovative technology-based solutions to a wide range of local challenges. Across the 4 DLAs, the Dublin local authorities, emerging technologies are being explored within their portfolio of smart projects. Alan, do you have something to briefly add here? What do you think is Smart Dublin at its core?
Gosh, I mean, you've you've stolen my thunder. You've summarized our world perfectly. Thank you for that. I must get a recording of this to reuse elsewhere. So I mean, at its core, and the sweet spot of Smart Dublin, and you touched on it. You used the word collaboration. It's a collaboration network across the 4 Dublin local authorities, but working with many other local stakeholders. So at its core, it's about relationships, an ecosystem, bringing together different actors to solve complex urban challenges. That's what we do. We're kind of the innovation broker that brings relevant people together to tackle problems. We hope for the better of society. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's actually one of my favorite topics to really dig into is, like PPP, these public-private partnerships. How do we, collaborate more to get more done for the citizens? So I think Smart Dublin has really encapsulated those thoughts. So to you also, what do you think is so we usually ask our guests, by the way, what's a smart city?
Yeah.
But I was wondering what your thoughts were on what is a smart region? Really, so you really work for the region. How does those challenges and differences work?
Yeah, okay. So a region versus a community versus a city, and trying to make all of those things smart. I suppose when it comes to the greater Dublin area or the Dublin region, we've got a mix of proper urban activity at the city centre. So it's capital city. But then, with the urban development that we have in Ireland and specifically in Dublin, we have a lot of suburbia, sort of urban sprawl, sort of feeding away from the city centre. And then beyond that, we're actually into quite rural country, rural territory quite quickly with small villages and small communities. So there's different characteristics of neighborhoods at play that make up the Dublin region. So we're very mindful that some of our solutions and projects are quite specific to the city centre activity, and others need to be mindful of more regional, even / rural communities. So we're trying to make them all smart. They all have their different challenges. I suppose looking across the kind of technology that we would test and trial, there's something that the principles of a lot of what we do, I think, can be applied at a very hyper local level in a rural community, almost as equal as deploying the same kind of technology in a proper full blown urban environment. So the Dublin region has all those different characteristics, and we try to cater for those different kinds of neighborhoods.
Yeah. I think a big challenge, I would assume it's also quite a challenge, more coordination. You have to bring in more stakeholders. You have to coordinate across all these different local authorities as well. How do you tackle that challenge?
I suppose on a case by case basis, the first rule of thumb, and this applies to any program or any project you're doing, not just the smart city space, you do a bit of a stakeholder map as to who should be involved in this project or who might derive value from the project that we're about to kick off. So based on that kind of mapping exercise, it'll become clear quite quickly, very early on, as to, do we need that kind of rural voice as part of the conversation, or is this just a very city centre focused conversation? Is suburbia affected by this? What stakeholders from those kind of neighborhoods might need to be involved? So it's kind of through that kind of stakeholder mapping we figure out who needs to be involved. And when I say stakeholders, like I work with the 4 Dublin councils. So we might have a project that just involves one of those councils because they have a specific situation in their jurisdiction. We have working groups, regional working groups, where all 4 councils are representative. On the topic of mobility in particular, which I seem to be more involved in than others, because residents and citizens don't recognise council boundaries when they move around the Dublin region. When we talk about truly transformational projects in the mobility space, trying to get people to use more active travel, trying to transition people to electric vehicles, trying to promote mass transit with other micromobility schemes, like that's a proper regional discussion. It's not just for one council. So Yeah, how do we make sure we get everybody involved? It's that kind of a stakeholder mapping, and if we get it right, if you get that right, then you're onto a good start. And sometimes it can happen that we start a project small, knowing that if we test something for 6 months or a year, we can scale up and then involve other stakeholders to roll it out across the region, for example. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's super important. We worked some with your neighbors ish in Belfast.
Oh yeah.
And we did a lot of this, stakeholder engagement, stakeholder mapping, and it's incredible when you sit down and you look at the map how many stakeholders there are, right? But it's so important to involve so many of these stakeholders too. So
yeah.
So
I was just going to add to that. Yeah, so like the breadth of what we do is a sort of a reflection of the breadth of the services that your local council does. So those services range from things like social housing to traffic management to waste management to environmental controls like air quality, noise pollution. The list goes on. Okay, so if every one of those services is a business process, in old school consulting language, every one of those is ripe for some sort of technology innovation, okay, in whatever shape or form that technology might come. So when we talk about stakeholder mapping, like each of those areas, there's domain expertise that we need to tap into. So the projects and stakeholder map for social housing are completely different to the stakeholder mapping around air quality or sustainable mobility or waste management. So the the people and the actors and these stakeholder maps that we create per project, as you say, it's a large number of individual people and organizations. Yeah.
Yeah, incredible. And so talking about this, I think also leads naturally into talking about really the Dublin ecosystem, right? So you told me previously, also in our previous conversation, that it's quite unique in Dublin. So what really makes it unique?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, probably on every podcast, the phrase "the quadruple helix" gets mentioned. So let's throw it in again, okay? So what is that? It's government, industry, academia, and citizens, right? Um, what? But Dublin is a capital city. Let's start there. So we have some significant advantages of being a capital city because central government reps from different departments are here. And Dublin's not that big, for example. I think it's 1.25 million is the population approximately. So we have the government power brokers quite close by. So that's a huge advantage for us at Smart Dublin, the local government voice in all of this conversation. Industry, we're doing pretty well tech sector wise, from startups all the way through to some significant global brands. Academia, there's been huge investment in the smart city space. We have the Science Foundation Ireland has a number of research centres. One in particular is looking at the smart city space, and they work with us on projects and identify research opportunities for them to get involved in. And of course, citizens, I think Dublin citizens have high expectations as to how the city and region should be run. They're pretty digital savvy. And some of the projects we've done where we were looking for their engagement, they've been responsive. So a lot of positives across the Quad Helix. And then also, I've heard this term used before. Dublin is kind of the Goldilocks size capital city. It's not too big, and it's not too small. Yeah. So when we're in particular working with industry to test and trial solutions, and one of the benefits that industry get out of working with the councils is they get a reference city for their solution to say, hey, we've done this in Dublin, and off they go to other cities with that kind of powerful reference, from a capital city in Western Europe. So there's a lot of positives across the different aspects of the Quad Helix. And like I said, our role is kind of to bring those relevant people together on a project by project basis.
Yeah. So when you're working within this kind of Quad Helix partnership, what piece of advice would you give to others?
Yeah. I'll go old school on this when it comes to program management, project management, one-on-one. Just build relationships. And I think we're lucky in Dublin. It's not too big. I and we on the team here, we've built personal relationships with key stakeholders from other public sector bodies. So that really helps when we want to do the next project in that particular domain. We've built relationships with industry, be it SMEs or some of the big tech companies. And again, the door is then left open for the next opportunity. So yeah, just build relationships and deliver. Of course, you gotta deliver on a particular project because otherwise, that stakeholder might kind of go, well, it didn't really work out the first time. So I'm not sure about doing a second project with you guys. But I think over the last 5 or 6 years, Smart Dublin has demonstrated its value. We have a significant portfolio going on. We published a report last year, our program highlights 2021. It's on our website, and it gives in a one sort of stop sort of document. It gives the reader a good overview as to the breadth of our program and all the different actors we work with. So yeah, bit of a long-winded answer to your question, but it's all about people and relationships.
No, it's good. Yeah, it's my job to make sure that you talk a lot. So they okay. Our listeners hear my voice enough. So you're the interesting one. So that's good. So yeah, you mentioned your program highlights. I don't like to pick favorites around here, but if you had to pick a favorite project or something along those lines, what would be your favorite highlight?
Yeah, okay. I'll go with a project we did in the homelessness space last year. So one of the functions within the councils is to provide emergency accommodation to homeless people in the Dublin region, and we have an outreach team. It's a third party. It's an outreach team that go around the city to try and engage with homeless people and persuade them to take up emergency accommodation, which is typically a hostel, for example. So that process, before we got involved in doing this project, was, walking around a certain schedule to probably well-known spots as to where there might be a homeless person. The project we did, working with the function within the council that provides the emergency accommodation, was to provide a design from scratch, an app that the public could engage with us in. And basically, what the app, which is available to download right now on Google or Apple, is to allow a member of the public just drop a pin as to where they've seen a homeless person, and that alert goes to this outreach team who can then go or get to that location quicker than previously. So I think looking at the metrics just earlier on this week, we're up to we're almost close to 1,000 alerts that we've received from the general public over the course of the last year. COVID interrupted this because there just wasn't that amount of people out on the streets as we are sort of seeing now. But a fantastic demonstration, back to my point, of citizens engaging with some of the work we're doing to improve an existing service so that the outreach team can try and get that person into emergency accommodation quicker than previously. So in terms of complexity, not very complex in terms of technology involved, etc. But it just a little bit of a game changer to help vulnerable people. So yeah, really happy with that project. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great example, and thanks so much for sharing that. So I've heard, around LinkedIn, I've seen just a few posts that Dublin has been one of the chosen 100 for the EU mission for climate neutral and smart cities. So what does that mean moving forward for Smart Dublin? How will you, proceed with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a recent announcement. So, what does that mean? Well, what it means is that there's going to be, I think they call it a climate city contract, is going to be signed between each of those 100 cities and the EU mission. So, the EU mission title is climate neutral and smart cities. So this is a move that's very officially joining the climate change and smart city world. Now, we've kind of seen opportunities for the smart city and technology to add value to the climate change agenda. But here's a proper official statement coming from the EU that actually merged the two worlds together. So for our program, I think it's a real signal that a lot of our work should feed into the climate change agenda, which I think in terms of us trying to explain what we do, it'll help us internally with some of our stakeholders, some of the service owners that manage the services that we're trying to deliver in a better way. I think that the climate change agenda it's definitely in the top five, if not the number one item on the chief executives of the local council's agenda across Dublin. So for our own value proposition to be seen, to have clear alignment with the climate change agenda, I think that helps the communication of our work. I think citizens will get it also as well. I think smart city programs kind of struggle with that a little bit, not just in Dublin, but across the world, in trying to articulate the value add and impact of their work. And here's an opportunity, I think, for us to clearly align to the climate change agenda. So delighted to see Dublin, as well as Cork, by the way, in Ireland also, to be chosen. So I think more alignment to the climate change agenda for us. Yeah.
Yeah, exciting things. I'll be looking forward to seeing what comes out of that. And now I can really open the floor to you. If you need 2 minutes or so, if what is something that you really want people to know about Smart Dublin as a whole, or anything that we missed touching on? I know the episodes are short, so you could probably talk for days about this stuff. But if you want to talk about anything else, the floor is yours.
Gosh, wow. Okay, yeah. It's a bit like the teaser questions at the start. You're just totally putting me on the spot here. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's conversations afoot here in Ireland for the cities, as well as to go back to your point about making rural communities smart, or even regional towns smart. I think there's a fantastic opportunity for Ireland, because we're not that big. The Republic of Ireland is only 5 million people. You mentioned Belfast, so north and south, it's 1.5 million plus 5 million. You're coming from Stuttgart, we're not in the Germany scale of things, but so I think it's a huge opportunity for all the cities and smart places, smart communities in Ireland to collaborate better together. So we've talked about collaboration in the Dublin region only. We got to get better and smarter at truly collaborating with the other cities, north and south, I think, as well as the smaller communities. And it's not that Dublin is doing everything and nobody else is doing anything. We know that there's some amazing projects happening across the country, and we'd love to learn from them as well. So Yeah, that's something I'd love to see is true collaboration within the smart city space across the island of Ireland. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I think where we're really at with smart cities, not too many years ago, we were just looking at the big cities, maybe like Dublin, but now we can really start looking at smart towns and how do we incorporate them into the regional scope of things. And it's a really exciting time, I think, also on what we can learn from each other. And yeah, that's really good. So also based off of learnings, I also want to now lead into our last segment, which is called Trial and Error. Trial and Error. What went wrong? What mistakes were made along the way? And more importantly, what lessons were learned? Can you think of anything?
Oh gosh. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I can go with something here. So in terms of where things might have gone wrong, and I don't know, is there anything wrong in when you're trialing and testing emerging technology? Arguably, all of it is good because everybody learns the process of innovation, and we learn if stuff actually does what the brochure says or not. I would say sometimes we haven't brought the internal service owners with us on the journey of that trial of a particular technology, and what that means is that or they didn't have enough skin in the game, if you like. They kind of felt, okay, well, they've been involved in the project, they were part of our initial stakeholder map, and the Smart Dublin guys went off and kind of did the project. And then we come back to them and say, well, hey, it actually worked, and are you ready to kind of scale this up or move it into mainstream activities? And I think we missed a trick that if you don't bring them on the journey and the experience, sometimes the roller coaster ride of doing some of these projects, and you just kind of come back to them at the end of the project and of the trial and say, hey, look, now this thing is ready for you to consider, you've kind of missed a trick because they haven't been with you on that journey. So again, it's more of a process, working with stakeholders, lessons learned, that if one of the aspirations of what we do here in trialing some of the solutions is to mainstream, a bit like the rough sleeper alert app I mentioned, that it's now part of the mainstream workflow of that team. If that's I think it should be one of our main success criteria, then we have to have the internal stakeholders, the service owners, the guys who run these services, the ladies and gentlemen, not just guys, involved all the way through the project. So when the conversation about shall we scale this up or shall we continue with this, they're already on board. We don't have to sell it back to them, if you like. Yeah.
So co-creation at its core.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah. Bring them on the journey.
That's it.
Sounds good. And now I just have to ask you one final question. And that's a question that we ask every single guest. And it is, to you, what is a smart city?
What is a smart city to me? Okay. I think it's about intelligence, where city functions are services or functions within a certain geography. So it doesn't have to be city. So back to the point we're making about rural communities and smaller towns, the same principle applies, that if there's intelligence being gathered through robust data to help make that place more efficient. And data can come in all shapes and forms. Citizens can be can be really helpful to provide meaningful data into how administrations oversee a certain jurisdiction. And if that happens, then of course that administration has to demonstrate that they're trustworthy and transparent and all that stuff. So I think a smart place is a place that demonstrates that intelligence back to its citizens in all shapes and forms. When it's doing a new project in the public realm, let's say, that it's all based on evidence and data wherever possible. So it's based on fact and not perception. I think if we get to that space that cities and places are intelligent, then everybody wins.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. And on that note, I just have to really thank you, Alan, and for joining me today. And yeah, I'm excited to talk a lot about Dublin in the coming episodes, also in our mini series, and to use Smart Dublin also is such a great case study to when I speak to other cities as well. And to all of our listeners, don't forget you can always create a free account on babel-smartcities.eu to find out more about smart city projects, solutions, implementations, and more. So thank you all. Thank you all for listening. I'll see you at the next stop on the journey to a better urban life.
Well, they do say that if you look at the map of Ireland, if you just look at it from a different angle, it looks like a small bear. So let's just say Ireland is a cuddly small bear.
Good. Yeah, wonderful.